Welcome to this episode of Learning Fusion. In today's episode, we're going to start going over 3D stuff within Fusion. And I'm going to start out just with some general stuff, but let's go ahead and roll this intro and let's get into it.
We're learning Fusion together. We'll learn 2D stuff and 3D stuff and particle stuff and compositing stuff, deep pixel stuff and tracking stuff, but not other stuff, but some other cool stuff, because we're learning Fusion together.
So as I said, I'm going to start out with general 3D stuff just so you are aware of like the interface and the display and all that stuff and what we need to do to be able to use 3D within Fusion. And I'm going to break this out into different episodes, meaning the next episode I'll probably go over like all the objects we can actually bring into our little 3D environment here. And then I'll go over lighting and materials and textures and all that other stuff in separate episodes. Otherwise, it'll be like 4 or 5 hours long. So within Fusion, we can use 3D. Now, I don't want you guys to get your hopes up because it is not super great. So it's pretty much intended just for general 3D stuff, like if you're doing 3D lower thirds or just different stuff like that, but you're not going to be able to create diverse 3D scenes in Fusion. It's just not going to happen. For something like that, you're going to have to use a dedicated 3D program like Houdini or Blender or something like that, because you're just not going to get the modeling and the look you really want. So let's jump into this and I'll kind of show you what Fusion has to offer. So within Fusion in the 3D environment, we have some specific nodes we have to use to be able to make all this happen. So the first one is our little 3D merge here. And this 3D merge, if I look at it, is pretty much our little 3D world that's going on. So everything revolves around this 3D merge. Now, you don't need just one. You can have multiple 3D merges and merge them all together. So you can have a bunch of shapes here and then a bunch of shapes here. You're lighting on another one. So however you want to set up, there's no one way to do it. But in general, our 3D merge is pretty much our hub of everything that goes on in the 3D world. Now, on top of that, we've got some other necessary nodes, meaning let's just throw a shape in here just so we can kind of see what's going on. And I'm going to change this to a sphere. Now, all these nodes I'm going over, I did do individual node breakdowns on every single one of them because some of them, well, a lot of them in the 3D environment are pretty complex when it comes to the interfaces. So I'm not going to go over all these in these little learning fusions, but I did go over all these individually in node breakdowns, which you'll be able to find in the description. So this is in general what our little 3D merge does. It allows us to see anything we input. We just input this little sphere. So now you can see we've got a sphere in our little 3D world there. Now, one thing to remember is we also need a render node, because if I try to go from my little 3D merge to my media out, you notice I can't connect it because we need to render anything that's happening in our 3D environment out prior to plugging it back into our little 2D environment. And that's what the render 3D node is for. So if I plug that in, you can see we've got our little render here of our scene. And once I plug it into our render 3D node, now I can plug it into our media out, and then our media out can go back into our edit page and all that stuff. Now, don't get confused. This render node isn't like your traditional render engines on 3D programs. You're not going to set your render in and out and all that fun stuff and render out your image. You can add saver nodes after this to render it out as on a saver node as an EXR, but this render node doesn't do that. All it really does is transform all of our stuff here back into a 2D and spit it out. Additionally, on our render node, and again, I said I did an in-depth node breakdown, but in general, we have render types, so software and hardware render, and depending on which one you use is going to depend on how this looks, and I'll show you that here in a second. Additionally, anytime we're doing any 3D stuff, by default, our enable lighting and enable shadows is automatically off, whether we're on the hardware render or the software renderer. So if you're not seeing any of your lighting or shadows, just make sure you turn that on because by default it is off. So now we will be able to see our lighting and shadows, but we don't have any lights yet. And additionally, we have no camera. So we really are not seeing, we're just seeing what's general in our little view area here that Fusion kind of makes up because we don't have a camera yet. So let me go ahead and double this up. Let's put this over here, our render view over here. So to be able to manipulate our view, we need a camera. So we can bring in a camera 3D and we can just plug that in. And on this merge node, just so you know, it doesn't matter where you plug it in, it all works the same. So this isn't more important than this one. It's just all pretty much the same inputs. And it's going to keep adding inputs as you add things. So now we've got a camera node. And if you look, our camera is sitting right here. So I can grab it. I can grab our camera. I can grab our camera and bring it back. You notice our view is changing depending on where our camera is. So I can raise it up and bring it back if I want. Additionally, I can grab that little sphere, move it off in the distance a little more, and bring it down if I want it centered. So let's go ahead and grab a light. So we've also got a light. Now, we do have some shortcut stuff for our little 3D nodes we can use right here at the end of our little menu system. Additionally, if we go to our effects, our first little things in our tools, if you look right here, we've got lights, we've got material, we've got textures, and we've got 3D. So all our first little menu systems when we go to our effects in the tools are all 3D stuff. So I could bring in this spotlight if I want, input the spotlight, and now we've got a spotlight. And again, I can change the location. I can just drag that spotlight, bring it up, bring it all the way to the back, transform it so it's shining on our little sphere there. So there we go. We've got a spotlight. Now, as I said before in our little render, depending on whether you have hardware or software, it is going to make a difference and look different. So if I go to our spotlight and do things like go to our shadow here, and if I change this to, I don't know, a variable shadow for our softness, I can change like our softness and everything of our shadow. But if I go to our render node, and change this to software render, you notice we start seeing these lines because the software render isn't as good as the hardware renderer. And again, the hardware renderer, meaning your GPU, is going to be dependent on the type of GPU you have. So the faster GPU you have, the faster the system will work. But I find even with my 4090, working in this 3D environment is still pretty laggy. So let's go back here and we're going to shut this off. Now on our 3D merge node itself, the controls in here are pretty simple. So let me go ahead and make this big. As you can see, we can see our little 3D environment there. We've got our sphere, our spotlight, and our camera. Now, if I right click in here, we've got some additional little display menu options that we didn't have in previous learning episodes when we went over this display. We have some 3D specific stuff. So under our 3D options, we can show or hide our controls. Pretty self-explanatory. And we can also show or hide our camera. Pretty self-explanatory, but we can also show or hide our lights. If we have a point cloud in here, meaning say we did a camera track and we've got point clouds from that camera track, we can show or hide that. We can hide our lighting, our shadows, or we can show them, meaning if I do my lighting, it's going to do a little extra lighting. Same with our shadows. We can show our default lights. We can show our matte objects if we have any matte objects. We can show or hide that grid if we want. Additionally, we can have our little shape show up as wireframes. We can show our normals or vectors. So if we need to check out our normals, we can just select that. If I zoom in here, you can see we're looking at our normals. Same with our vectors, we can show or hide those if we want. Now, additionally, we have this overscan. So if you have any overscan stuff, you know, you set up in a previous like FBX or something you're bringing in, you can set up that overscan, and all it is going to do is going to overscan your display. So if I hit 1.5, it's just overscanning that display. And we can change our transparency levels, meaning if we have different transparency stuff that our cameras are looking through, we can change how that's looking. So Z buffer, full sort, or quick sort. Under our camera menu, this is where we change our actual view of our camera. So right now it's under perspective. I can look at the front. the top, left, right, or go back to perspective. Additionally, under here, I can select different cameras that I want to look at. So if I want to look where my spotlight is looking, I can just select my spotlight, and that's exactly what my spotlight's looking at. Or I can go back to our regular camera. I can go back to our regular camera and change it back to perspective. Now, additionally, we have this Copy Pro V2, and all that's going to do is going to copy the location of your display. Meaning, kind of hard to explain, but let me show you real quick. So say I'm way over here for some odd reason. I'm way over here, and I want my spotlight to be here looking where my display is. If I right click, I can go to Camera, Copy Pro V2, I can select Other, and I can select my spotlight, and boom, my spotlight's right there. If you notice, if I zoom out, you can see where my display was setting in that 3D world. My spotlight is now moved back there. I can undo it and just put it back. So if you need to put something in the location where your display is, that's how you would do that. Now, on your display itself, your little shortcut keys, if I use my middle mouse wheel and mouse up and down, it's going to drag the scene up and down. If I hit Control and middle mouse wheel or scroll my mouse wheel, it's going to zoom in and out. My shift is going to tilt it. And if I just hold my middle mouse, I can free move around. And if I hold Alt in my middle mouse, I can kind of pan around where my mouse is dragging. So pretty simple. Now, within the 3D world, other than just shapes here, and let's go ahead and stub our view back up so we're looking at our little render. Let's go to our shape and let's change our materials. And I'll go over materials in a different episode, but I'm just changing it real quick so it's not just white. We can kind of see what's going on. There's other things you can add, like I can add this text 3D. So if I bring in this text node and let's write a, I don't know, 3D text. There we go. We've got 3D text, and you can see we can move it around however we want. It's not very 3D right now because we haven't extruded it, but on our text node, we've got all the typical text settings. And then down here, we've got this little extrusion, so we can change the depth of our text. So now we're extruding out. I can transform that and move it around a little bit so you can see. And if I add an ambient light, so I can just hit Shift Space, ambient light, go ahead and add that. We're going to plug that into our merge. We've got a little ambient light going on. And I can change my intensity right here of that ambient light. And we can even move our spotlight so our little text is actually shining there. And let's move our text back actually. Let's move it back. So it's a little closer to our sphere. There we go. We've got our text in our light. And if I go to our text, you can see changing that extrusion changes our extrusion. I can go to the shading and I can change the color of our text. There we go. We've got our text now colored. And we've got some other cool nodes like the image plane there. So if I wanted to bring in an image plane, I could bring in an image plane. We can transform that back. Let's put it behind, and we're going to go ahead and make this pretty large. So if I wanted to bring in, say, an image or anything, I could bring in a video and put that in the back. So let's see here. Let's find a video real quick. There we go. We've got a little video. I can just input this into the material of my image plane. And now we've got a video playing in the background. There we go. I can even change the scale up a little more if I want. 8. There we go. We've got this video playing in the background and the shadows are being cast on it from our little 3D stuff there. Additionally, we can do things like not affect light. So say we want that video in the background to be playing at its full video strength. We can go to the image plane here. And if we go under our lighting, we can say not affected by lights. So now we're playing our video at full brightness or full level, or we can turn it on and have it affected by our 3D stuff there. And again, all of our stuff like our ambient lighting is going to affect how bright or dark that image is in the background. And again, as I said, we could bring this render out to our media out now, and we can use that in our little edit area and export it out on our delivery page whenever we need to. Now, also within our render, this is where we would change any channels we need to bring out. So for instance, right now, if I right click, we look at our channels, we've just got our RGB and A channels, but under render node, if I select this little output channels, if I need for any reason after my little render node there to push say Z information, or say I need my vectors so I can do some vector blur or anything I need to do to it, I can check those. And now if I right click, go to my channels, now you can see we've got our depth Z and we've got our vectors coming out as well. So whatever I need to select, I can select or unselect. So that is pretty much, in a nutshell, the general gist of how the 3D system within Fusion works. In the next episode, I'm going to cover all the objects and different things we can bring in, whether it's FBX or different shapes and models from, say, Blender. I'm going to go over everything we can actually input as objects within our little Fusion 3D system here. So I will see you guys in the next episode.